This episode of the Out of Spec podcast was brought to you by Magna. Magna is a leading edge mobility technology company for automakers, and it supplies automotive systems, assemblies, modules, and components to countless brands you've undoubtedly heard of. GM, Ford, BMW, Mercedes, Volkswagen, and so many more. Magna has been a key player behind the scenes for decades, including pioneering some of the first reverse cameras before you had even heard of the concept. They now look to the future with fully autonomous driving systems, ADAS, and many electric car components for your EV at home. We'd like to thank our sponsors that make shows like this possible. Hey, welcome back to the Out of Spec podcast. I am Jordan, joined with Kyle Connor and special guest Dave Connor, Kyle's dad, which we're very excited to have on the show because you may have seen him in videos in recent times, road tripping around, owning a million ID4s, and now an Ioniq 5. I thought that maybe someplace we could start off and talk about just, we'll get into some of your car history later because it's a fascinating car history, just the bits and pieces Kyle's told me. But starting from the present, how do you like the Ioniq 5 and where have you taken it recently?
Yeah, no, I really like the ID5, and I know that a lot of people.
You mean the Ioniq 5, not the ID5?
Whatever. The ID5, the Ioniq 5, look, the Ioniq 5 is really, truly I would put it up in the top 5 cars that I've actually ever owned. And I know that's saying a lot, but there's something very special about this car that I just don't know what it is. And I will tell you that when I first saw it, I didn't like it. I thought the angular line on it from a stylistic standpoint, I just thought it looked weird. And in the pictures, it looked very strange. And then I actually saw one, and it was in that digital teal color, and it just didn't do anything for me. And as I was going down more research, I started to look at the technology under the hood, what's actually going on with this car. And that's what really started to attract me to the vehicle as opposed to keeping the third ID4 that I had purchased. And the reason for that was really simple. This thing charges so much faster. And while for everyday usage, Jordan, I don't really need that. My commute is 6 miles one way, and I can charge on a 110 at home. It's fine. But when I go to Florida, because we got a place, some of you may know, down in Marco Island, this is life altering. Now, I took some notes when I did my ID4 trip going down, I don't know when it was, over the summer. And the time that it took me to go there in minutes, was 373.34 minutes of charging in the ID4.
Wow.
And the Ioniq 5, 242 minutes and 8 seconds. That's 131 minutes and 26 seconds. Little more than 2 hours and 11 minutes, less time charging. And to me, that's really sort of, a major jump in terms of capabilities that really got me into saying, maybe I should look at this car. I was thinking about, what if it saves me 3 hours one way? That's 6 hours round trip. That's 18 hours on 3 round trips, which is basically what I'm going to be doing between now and the end of the summer. One more round trip, that's an entire day sitting at fewer Walmarts at 2 in the morning. I joked with Kyle, it could be the difference between life and death. Just when you think about some of these locations that you go to at Electrify America, and thank you very much for putting them out there. But, they're kind of skeptical. Like, what good is happening at a Walmart after midnight? There's not a lot good happening there. So anyway, the technology got me interested. And then something happened when I saw this Moonstone Grays on the ID4. When I saw this shooting star matte finish, I was like, that really does it for me. And I saw it in person, and then I read all the scary, don't buy it because it's the worst thing in the world from a taking care of it standpoint.
Well, can you explain why it's hard to take care of?
Yeah. So my understanding, limited understanding on the research that I've done, is that there's a paint color and then there's a clear coat on top of the paint color on any car. The clear coat that goes on top of this matte finish, the way that Hyundai does it, is because it's not a wrap or anything like that. It's an actual paint. The paint on a traditional car with a glossy finish, it's a very smooth finish. But with this Ioniq 5 matte color, the clear coat is actually like peaks and valleys, like mountains and valleys. And if you use a wax to clean the car or polish the car, the wax will fill in all those peaks and valleys. And if you get a spot where it's filled in, and then there's a spot where it's not filled in, it'll look shiny in one spot, and then it'll look like matte in another. And it kind of reminds me of this 1978 Honda Accord that I had when my buddy Tommy Bruce and we bought this. The thing had like 110,000 miles on it. And I did a paint job, and I put masking tape all over the car. And I went to the Honda dealership and I bought this exact color paint. It was a metallic tan paint, and I just painted the whole car. And when I took off all the masking tape, the whole car had spots all over it. And of course, back then I was in college and everyone nicknamed the car Spot, and it was a big joke. But this car, you have the potential of if you don't take care of it the right way, you can actually have a shiny spot here and then a satin or a matte spot there. And as long as you're not using wax on the car and you're not taking it through a car wash, like an automated car wash, and you use a waxless paint car wash for the paint, then it's fine. And I have found so far, to take care of it's really not been a big deal at all. So that's my story on the paint, Kyle.
It's like a love story. You describing how you came upon this Ioniq 5 and saw it in person and fell in love at first sight. It's
Well,
beautiful.
I mean, it wasn't love at first sight. In fact,
you're right. It's a polarizing design, and so at first, in the different color, you weren't quite sold, but you love it now.
It's weird because color typically does not drive my buying decisions. I do look at style. Color, to me, certain cars look okay in many, many different colors. In the Ioniq 5, to me, there was only two colors that worked: Cyber Gray, which I loved, and the Shooting Star Matte. And the reason why I ended up going with the Shooting Star Matte had nothing to do with the exterior color. I could have been either way, Shooting Star or the Cyber. It was the interior. And I remember when Kyle did that. I don't know where the heck you were, Kyle, out in California, and you got that. You got the Shooting Star Matte with what they call the dark green interior. Like that. By the way, the worst name in the history of naming interior colors of car ever. Okay, they win, like not even a competition, because I don't see any dark green at all. Maybe the dash you could, like, if you maybe had a couple of Michelob lights, you could say maybe it's a dark green color. But there was the interior, the white interior I really liked. I didn't like the car with the dark interior, and it had this piping on there that just spoke to me. I was like, I have to have the piping.
Yeah.
And in order to get the piping, you had to get the dark green interior. In order to get the dark green interior, you had to get the Shooting Star. You couldn't get the Cyber Gray. The Cyber Gray came with the same color interior seats, the nice white seats, but there was no piping. And even my wife, who was like, I don't really care about this car. She's indifferent about the Ioniq 5. She's like, what are you doing? Just keep the ID4. It's fine. It's really nice. It's really comfortable. It's got massaging seats. What are you doing? But she's like, yeah, I like that piping. So that's why I ended up with the car. It was a combination of looks at first, the paint color, the interior, and then there were a number of things that were really frustrating me about the ID4 that kind of motivated me, which maybe we could talk about as well. But yeah, great car, monster road tripper. The only problem with it is in the cold weather, it's as you and Zach discovered on your race to Vegas, right? You guys plug in. What are you pulling? 60 kilowatts, right?
That's
And
just user operator error.
Yeah, I didn't we didn't rubber band it like at all. I
yeah,
kind of wish I had driven just so I could like really do it like
At that point, it's worth just like burning the whole battery pack to warm it up.
yeah.
yeah.
Running it all the way down. But anyway, we'll talk about Race to Vegas and
Yeah, but what I was going to say is that on specifically on the preconditioning battery, there's so many people talking about the rumored, software release that's going to be coming out before next winter. I hope it does, but right now the car at 60, 70 degrees, 80 degrees now doesn't matter anymore. The car is an animal. It's a charging animal. So
definitely. Yeah. Great car. So how many, I mean, you probably don't know the number, or do you? How many cars have you owned? How many
I
cars
don't
has
know.
Kathy experienced you just buying and selling?
Yeah, it's been I guess I'm sort of envious of the business that Kyle's in now because he can experience cars, get these cars for a week or two and be done with them and then move on. When you're in a position where you've got either manufacturers or friends throwing you cars to review, that works. When you're working for a living and you get bored of a car after buying it, and 2 weeks later, you're like, wait, look at that over there. That looks really interesting to me. It becomes a relatively expensive hobby. So I would say that it's embarrassing. I don't want to answer, but well over 100 cars I've owned without a doubt in my life.
They sometimes say don't meet your heroes. Are there any cars that come to mind that you just were, envious of and wanted to have it and you got it and it was just so disappointing?
No, but there was a car when I was 14, 13 years old. My next door neighbor he was a lawyer. He had a few bucks. He had a Datsun 240Z. And I looked at that car and I said, I really have to get one of those cars. And when I was maybe 13, and then I started growing, and I'm 6'5", and and I started getting taller and taller. And I remember not fitting in the car in any way, shape, or form where I was comfortable. And I never ended up getting one, but that was like my dream was that car.
Hey, Dad, you know what happened today? Speaking of that car, is the new Z just launched, and Zach drove it, and the embargo just lifted today on the new one, which looks like the old one a bit.
Yeah,
yeah.
Kyle, remember we went and drove that 300ZX twin turbo? I think in Nyack,
with
New York.
Rear steering.
Yeah, that was a cool car. You know what it is, Jordan? I have. I've bought and sold a lot of pre-owned cars because buying new, up until recently, buying new at the right price is just, you're really killing yourself in terms of value. But so I've tried to buy cars right over the years and keep them for a while and then get tired of them and then flip them and sell them. There was Kyle, remember the Spider, the Mitsubishi? Was that what did they call it? Yeah, that was a pretty cool car. I think that also had 4-wheel steering as well.
You also had an E60 M5 in period, which was cool.
So I'll tell you a story about that, right? Kyle's like, Dad, you got to get this car. It's got this transmission that is you don't even have to shift it, but you kind of do. It's a Manumatic, or I don't even know what this thing was.
Well, it was an SMG is what it was called.
It was semi-manual gearbox, an SMG. So I remember one day, it was a long day. I'd gotten off the train. I was getting onto the Merritt. It was raining out. And I was looking in my left. I'm getting onto the Merritt. I'm accelerating. And I'm looking at the cars in my left-hand mirror. And then all of a sudden, they just disappeared. I don't know where the cars went. And I looked up, and I was completely sideways. And I looked at, I realized that Kyle had put the car in some kind of, when you can turn off like all the traction control and turn, which is fine if you know what you're doing, okay, or are prepared for.
Well, you should explain. You had your M buttons programmed, and we set them up together. And I was like, "Oh, you don't want any of that traction control stuff."
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
but do you think I understood what that meant? Like
I would think as a car enthusiast, yes.
No, I did, but but I didn't realize the car was still in that mode, I guess, and that was one of the scariest almost accidents I've had in my life was in that M5. But that's getting a little off track from an Ioniq 5. But there's been a lot of fun cars over the years. Had a lot of Porsches. Had a lot of we had a lot of Saabs, believe it or not.
Really?
So when we picked up Kyle's and Alyssa's new e-tron up in Watertown, Connecticut, a few weeks ago or a couple of weeks ago, they still had the Saab sign out in front of the dealership, which I thought was pretty cool.
And an Isuzu sign.
They did have an Isuzu sign, but I'll never forget it. I was in 1978. I was not old enough. Was I old enough to drive? I was right around old enough to drive, but I didn't have any money. And I was like, my father, I was trying to convince my dad to buy this Saab Turbo. And we used to go drive. We used to go over in in Rockland County in Orangeburg, New York. There was a Saab dealer there called Pizza Saab. And I used to, God, let's go see the Saab. Let's go see the Saab. And at the time, BMW was kind of coming into the scene, and they had brought out the 320i and brought it over to the States. Now, obviously, they were in the country before that for a while, but so he ended up going with the 320i instead of the Saab. I was so depressed. And it said turbo on it. How cool was that, right? Turbo.
That was the age where you put turbo on toothbrushes, and it was cool.
Yeah, it was. Right, exactly. It was, but there was they had the marketing down there, and it was kind of a brilliant thing. Anyway, I'm getting way off track, so I'll.
There's no track we need to stay on.
There's no track. Okay.
Nope. It's anything.
Well, I just wanted to maybe talk a little bit about more about why I went with the Ioniq 5 as opposed to the ID4.
Or why don't you start earlier than that?
Yeah.
Talk about hybrid, electric, and then your electric, I guess, A to Z, how you ended up where you are now.
Yeah.
And if you're such a Porsche guy, why don't you drive a Taycan?
That's a good question. So I will look, I've worked my whole life in intangibles, basically Wall Street, selling electronic trading, stock trading, and what have you. And thing I like about cars is you can touch them, you can feel them, but there's so many intangible things that go into a car that I find it extremely fascinating. When you think about this, you have all these raw materials, you have rubber, you have metal, you have plastics, you have all kinds of things that come together, that are melded together, designed, implemented from all different manufacturers, brought together, that have to work in minus 30 degrees in, let's say Fahrenheit, all the way up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit or 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And you have to sell this, make sure people are safe, and warranty the car and deliver that to someone. And, within all kinds of specs and guidelines. So to me, I think my fascination with cars is really been around on the manufacturing side of that. My first car that I ever had, it was given to me by my dad's dad, my grandfather. The car was up in Rochester, New York, and it was a 1966 Ford Mustang. It had a 289 8-cylinder engine in it. And because it was in Rochester, it basically didn't have much structure to it because all the rust, all the salt had eaten the metal away over the years and the rust. And in any event, I brought that car down to my house. I had it before I was 16. And I used to try and tune up the engine. I really didn't know what I was doing, and it had a carburetor, and I would stick a screwdriver in the carburetor, and I just tinkered around with it. It was a lot of fun. But over the years, as technology started to kind of increase and you started thinking about fuel economy, the thing that caught my eye was the Toyota Prius. And, the concept
Didn't you
of,
trade an M5 in on the Prius? No, you traded a Range Rover in on a Prius, which was the funniest transaction ever.
I might have. I don't remember. I remember getting the M5 at the Stanford
Right. You got an
Subaru
STI.
dealer.
Right.
Right. I was going to look at an Impreza, and there they had this beautiful silver M5 on the floor used. I don't know why they had it there. I was like, done. I got to get that thing. But
wait, but didn't you trade? There was a period where it was the new STI.
Yeah,
when the hatch came out.
The hatchback one. Yeah.
Right, but was that before or after the M5?
That was. I don't remember.
Yeah. And then a Prius ended up in the mix, but then either before or just after the Prius, a supercharged Range Rover, and then another Prius.
Well, but maybe that was the chain of events. I don't remember. But the thing I remember was getting in a taxi cab in New York City, and it was a Prius. And I had never been in a hybrid before. And it had this graphic where it was showing energy going, to the wheels, and then energy going to the battery pack. And I asked the cab driver, what is that? I had no idea what it was. And he explained to me, not super eloquently, but he explained to me that the car not only had an engine motor, a gas engine, but it also had a motor and a battery. And I thought that was just super fantastic, like fascinating to me. And the fact that I didn't like the Gen 1s at all from a styling standpoint, but when and this was a Gen 2, and I got one. I think it was that a Prius 5? I think
you
it
had
was
a Gen 3.
Gen 3. That's right. It was a Gen 3. The Gen 1, forget about it. The Gen 2s I didn't like, but the Gen 3 was kind of like a tolerable design to me. But I was more fascinated with what
podcast chat room with two ex-Prii owners.
Yeah, Dave, this is a car
right?
you and I both owned, the Gen 3 Prius.
I thought those things are tanks.
I need to find some other hosts here.
It was great. So the Gen 3 Prius had a slightly flattened bottom steering wheel, a power button.
That's right. That's
real
right.
Performance machine.
That's right. Yeah, but that car, there was something about what was going on underneath. Again, the technology that was really fascinating to me, and the fact that you could actually get 50 miles to the gallon in that car was amazing for its time. It was so far out in front of anything else on the road at the time, with the exception of maybe a Volkswagen Jetta diesel. Right. Yeah. Which they wouldn't even tell you what you could really get in those things because they had some interesting tuning going on with them. But that's a different issue. Right. But yeah, I enjoyed the fascination of the technology. And then if you fast forward to when Kyle turned 20, I said, Kyle, it's your birthday today. What do you want to do? He said, I want to go test drive a Tesla. And I said,
yep.
Okay. I'm pretty sure it was before I was 20, but
I think it was your 20th birthday. Maybe it was your 19th birthday.
It was definitely earlier than that because I was working for Tesla when I was 20.
So okay. You know what? Maybe it was your 16th birthday then. I apologize.
It was a while before 20, that's for sure. But anyway, some point in history.
In any event, so we went up to, was it Mount Kisco at the time, or was it the mall?
No, it was Westchester Mall.
Westchester Mall.
Yeah,
that's
there
right.
weren't many Tesla, stores for a while, and a lot of
there weren't.
Were in malls.
There weren't, and unfortunately, Kyle was too young. They would not let him, of all the companies, to not let, whether it was 16 or 17 years old, he wasn't able to drive the car, even though he was a licensed driver. So I had to drive the car. And it was a surreal experience driving this Model S. I will never forget. We're driving up 684, and there was a Kyle. You may or may not remember this, but I remember this. And I remember this car had some technology on it. So it wasn't like 2012 or 2013. It might have been when the first quote autopilot had come out. There was a UPS truck in the right-hand lane, and I was going in the center lane, and the UPS truck started to come over into our lane, and the car avoided the UPS truck. And it was pretty fascinating to me what happened. I can't remember exactly if I was doing a lane change or it did something. And I said to myself, wow, that is pretty incredible technology. And it was also just the surreal smoothness of, you know, the power delivery and how it actually handled, that I was just immediately fascinated with the electric cars. And then I guess we just started.
Was that after your i3 or before?
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
because you also had an i3.
Yeah,
which was cool. The Panda Spec.
Yeah, that was a cool car. That was a Rex range extender, and I used to drive that car. You know, that was the time we were living in New Canaan, and I was commuting into Manhattan. And the challenge was to drive it all the way into the city, park it all the way back, and not turn the gas engine on once, right? And I did it one time. The best thing that happened was there was traffic, and I was able to eke it out. It was about 85 miles round trip. And I just did it. The gas engine never came on once in that car, going all the way round trip in and out of the city.
And then they came out with the bigger battery i3s.
Yeah, they did.
Got one of those.
I don't know that I got one of those.
No, I'm not saying. I said you never did.
Yeah, no.
Would have done it electric in the bigger battery i3.
Yeah.
But then what happened? There was a whole bunch of Teslas.
Well, there was the 60D Model X, which was a software limited 75D, I think.
Still the best value at the time.
Yeah. And you know, that was back in the day when you were still able to get the full tax credit. Obviously, that was a 2016, I believe.
Yeah, it was one of the first Model X's, and it was really interesting too because on the 75 kilowatt hour pack, the difference between the 60 and 75 wasn't 15 kilowatt hours; it was like 10 and a bit kilowatt hours, and you could full charge the 60 every day, where the 75 you had to charge to 90%.
That's true, right? Because it was software. The battery was the same size. It was just clamped down. I mean, that was, you know, that was just insane to think about how computers on wheels were now being sold, right? You know, like the software limited. What is that? Why would anyone do that? That's crazy. But we did take that trip on that car on a road trip down to, I think, visit our daughter Katie, who at the time was somewhere in college in Virginia, and that car, that was horrible to road trip. I think I might have gotten 140 miles of range one way in the cold weather, and we just it was not a great road tripper for sure. That was but it made some fun around Christmas time. You could really entertain the neighbors with that car.
Right, with the Christmas update. I remember when that came out, we were all standing around it watching it flat. But you've had Model 3, S, X, and Y. You've had all of them.
Yes.
Except for a Roadster. And which do you prefer out of all of the Teslas?
I think the Model S. To me, that's the car. The 3 and the Y, they're very, what's the right word? Medical, clinical. I think they do a great job. They're amazing cars, but when you're going over bumps on a car, like at 65 miles an hour, and with the Model Y especially, maybe it was just the tires that we had on that car, but that thing used to skip, and it wasn't that smooth. It wasn't that quiet. I had never had an issue with the vehicle. It was a great car, but it was the Model S with the air suspension. You get in that thing, that was a real beautiful car. Now, the one that I had was not a newer one. I don't remember what year it was. I think it had that.
You had a really rare one. You had a P85 Plus.
That's right, P85 Plus
with the upgraded suspension that was only offered at first in Germany for high speed tuning. Then they put it on and beefy control arms. The thing was awesome.
Yeah.
And
But
we
it
took
didn't
I
charge.
took
It
it around
didn't
the
charge
block.
at all very well.
Well, it was an old 85 kilowatt hour pack that, yeah, I mean, the thing, yeah, didn't charge that great.
No, no. But that car, I would say, to answer your question, I really enjoyed it. I liked the X as well, but it was somewhat impractical in terms of, the seating configuration, and the doors were just a little, I don't know, a little
Did you have the
ostentatious.
6 seat?
No, yeah, not the 7.
Right. They didn't fold flat.
They didn't fold flat.
Right. That was dumb.
And the motors were super
Nice.
slow on that car.
Right. They've since been updated since that one. I mean, it was a really early X, and it had,
Yeah.
I would say you actually didn't have that many build quality issues on it.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, Ben, I think, had one of the earliest build.
Yeah,
X's.
Ben's was terrible.
Yeah.
Everyone in Tesla knows Ben's Model X because
Yeah. No, I didn't. I honestly, I've never really. I mean, a lot of people. Oh, look at the gap panels. Look at this. Look at that stuff. Doesn't even remotely bother me. I think what Tesla. I'm a huge Tesla fan. I just got a little. They're so good. They're not really all that much fun to road trip because everything just works on them.
Yeah.
And for the majority of the people out there, they're perfect. They're great. The Tesla network's insane. I mean, I don't need to tell you. You guys know this. I mean,
it's the easiest EV to recommend to someone because it has
absolutely.
the lowest barrier of knowledge entry.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Everything just works. You don't even know it. It's got preconditioning. It's got en route planning. It tells you exactly where to go. You don't have to think about anything. I mean, if you watch that video I did with the Ioniq 5 down in Florida, that was, to me, my brain was going the whole time because I was thinking about strategizing. What am I going to do next? How am I going to do it? It kept me awake. I guess that's the only good news.
That is the fun part.
To me, I think it's fun. But for the average person,
very early days, yeah. But like, mom wouldn't want to do that.
She doesn't want to do that. No. She doesn't.
So mom had the Model Y, got a Macan again, second Macan. What's next? Macan EV for mom?
So we actually are.
You ordered one.
We did.
Well, and I guess Porsche ordering is a little different because they don't have like a ordering system. You paid a dealership to be very high up on their.
That is correct. That is correct.
Cars, yeah.
What we don't there's 3 potential moves as the next move. My Ioniq 5 right now, I'm keeping it for a while at least. Kyle was joking with me as I had the ID4s, Jordan. He was like, "Dad, you got the rear wheel drive ID4, like the base one.
Yep.
Then you wanted the fancy one, but they didn't have the all wheel drive one. So I got the fancy rear wheel drive one. Then when they came out with the all-wheel drive one, Kyle's like, Dad, you got to drive this thing. It's substantially faster. Not that I needed it, but I went and drove it, and then I was like, yeah, I got to get the all-wheel drive, and plus the Moonstone Gray. Really liked it a lot. Didn't love the brown dash at first, but it kind of grew on me with the black.
I don't think I ever saw your base one.
No, but it looked just like, it was a white one with the light interior. It was, it was a great car. It was a fine car. Right? But what was I saying? So the Moonstone Gray one that I had, was a great car. But the Ioniq 5 for me just feels like it just, sometimes when you have a car and it just kind of matches your character. I know I'm a lot older than a lot of you guys that subscribe to this channel, perhaps, maybe not, but it kind of looks like a little bit of a younger kid's car. But for me, I just think it's my personality. I really, really like it. Now, Kathy, on the other hand, she loves her Macan, but with not that this is an economic decision at all, but gas now here in Fairfield County is like $5.50 a gallon.
Yeah.
It cost $85 to fill up that Macan, and that her Macan, she's got just a base Macan. It's a 2021. We bought it certified pre-owned. If we were to sell it today, she's driven it now for about 11 months, 12,000 miles. We would make $2,000 on the car.
Yeah,
that's how strong the value is. So so a couple things started to, we had a conversation about this GV60, and we decided to go in to look at the Genesis house in New York City, and Kathy was like, she didn't really want to go. She didn't really like it. But when she saw the GV60, she said, wow, that sort to her, it looks like a Macan. And she really felt as though that might be a nice car as a next car if she decides to get rid of the Macan. Opportunistically, I think we're thinking there's nothing wrong with the Macan. There's no reason to get rid of it. It's a certified car. It's beautiful. But she really fell in love with this GV60. And then Kyle's like, no. Well, first of all, the GV60, I think more so than even the Ioniq 5, you either love it or you don't. It's got that Saab sort of,
yeah.
I don't know what the right term for it is. Polarizing, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's polarizing, and it looks weird in some colors, but good in other colors.
I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah, and Kyle doesn't like it, which has a little bit of impact on us, but not a lot. I mean, it's usually
it's a good car mechanically. You can't say it's bad. I just would prefer the Ioniq 5, which you already have.
So there's one problem with the GV60 though. My wife fell in love with the Napa leather seats, which are absolutely gorgeous. They have this triangular, I don't know what you call it. It's like a cushioned fabric leather, and you can only get those seats in the GV60. What do they call it? The advanced or the premium? I forget.
I haven't even looked at the trims. I don't know.
Well, the problem is it's on the fancy one. That's probably, we don't know how much it's going to cost. But
is it the performance one or is it the nice one?
No, it's you have to get the performance one in order to get the Napa leather seats. And when I told Kathy that, she said, that's no problem. So, so now, meanwhile, this car has 429 horsepower. It's got 260 kilowatt motors, rear and front. And it has a boost button that gives you 10 seconds of overboost, making it get 489 horsepower. And I mean, like, that's just overkill for what we need. My Ioniq 5 all-wheel drive is so fast. It's plenty fast. But this GV60 is going to go, they claim 0 to 62 in 4 seconds, I believe. So under the right, and Hyundai has, in my opinion, they've been very conservative with their ratings of the car. So for example, the Ioniq 5, they say 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. I consistently am hearing about people 4.8, 4.7, and I'm 4.8 in my car scanner app that I use with the OBD2 port scanner. And so I really believe that GV60 is a 3.x 0 to 60 car. What do we need that for, right? I don't know, but it has the Napa leather seats and the performance model. So then Kyle's like, Dad, Mom really should get the Macan. She loves the Porsche. She should get the Macan EV. But the problem with that is we don't know how much they're going to cost. And then you're dealing with Porsche. So if Mom falls, I've been saying this, Kyle, if Mom falls in love with 1 or 2 features in that Porsche, they nickel and dime you for everything on Porsche, right? So I don't know how much a base one's going to cost. I think Car and Driver magazine came out and said it's going to start at 80 grand. And when you think about a base rear wheel drive Taycan, which is 86, I think, Kyle, 85, 999, something like that.
I thought there were 79.
No, they're not.
Then maybe what I was thinking was after the tax credit.
That's very well. But you're talking, if that thing's 80 grand for the base one, and then
you'll need $10,000 worth of options because you want headlights, windshield wipers, seatbelt buckles, all the
yeah.
So bottom line is we have $500 in on the GV60 deposit. It's totally refundable. There was a 2.5 day window where they opened up orders on that. And I saw an article on Inside EVs that they had opened it up, and I put in the order. and I got this concierge called me up, Mr. Connor, thank you for ordering. I mean, really high-end service so far, and all I've done is put a $500 deposit down on the car, and
Well, that's a good sign.
it is a good sign, and I was very impressed with everything that I saw at the at Genesis House and just their attitude about what they're doing. And I do like the fact that it is, basically the same exact car that I have with the Ioniq 5 and the EGMP platform. So that's very much high on our list. And then we put $500 down on the Macan. So option one is Kathy just keeps what she has, and we're happy, which is a very strong possibility. Option two is GV60. If the GV60 comes in and she really wants to go for it, we'll probably pull the trigger on the GV60, and then take advantage of the strong market on the Macan now. Her gas powered, ice powered Macan, and then we'll have optionality when the Porsche Macan comes in. And what I mean by that is, okay, if it's within reasonable pricing and she really wants it, then I'll make a decision as to which car I keep, whether it's the Ioniq 5 or the GV60.
Yeah.
And so I think that's going to be the chain. And if the Macan comes in before the end of this year, then we'd end up with 3 tax credits. I know a lot of people get mad when they say, "Oh, you're abusing the tax credits and all that," but you know what? They're there. It goes into my buying decision. I'm sorry, it does.
Yeah, I'm really curious about the GV60 because I like the Ioniq 5 and the EV6 for different reasons, and I think I might like the GV60, although I've not even really seen it in person, or the interior, which is a big deal for me.
The interior is insane. These engineers at Genesis, they did something really, really bad. They designed this magic crystal ball.
Yeah.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Right? And my wife, Kathy, freaking loves it.
Yep.
She's like, I love the magic ball. I can't wait to get into that car, and I'm going to say, mirror, mirror, whatever I don't know. It's like something magical has come over her with this stupid magic ball. And but I will tell you though, it is really well done. The execution of the car, the quality components that they put into it. I looked carefully at the fit and finish. They had 3 pre-production models at Genesis House. They had one in a white color, which is what we would get, the white with the white Napa leather seats. The 21-inch wheels make no sense at all, but they're gorgeous, and you got to get that with the performance. So we'll probably have to talk to Drew about designing some Martian wheels that are 19s or something. I don't know.
He is going to do Martian wheels for that chassis.
Yeah, the brakes though look pretty big on that car. I wonder what they're doing to enhance the braking on that car be over the standard, because it does have a lot of power. But the interior is that is the highlight of that car. The exterior I really like, but it is 8 inches shorter than a Porsche Macan and about 4 inches shorter than an Ioniq 5. So it's really kind of squatty. It's not a big SUV. The GV70 is quite a bit bigger, and they're bringing that out as well this year. But that's not really built from the ground up. That's a convert. Right? They're going to still run the ICE cars on that chassis as well as the batteries. So, but I'm impressed with what Genesis is doing, not only with the vehicles, but also with their commitment to try and bifurcate the Hyundai experience, which is okay at some places. Like the dealer that we bought the Ioniq 5 from, Kyle, Gary Romes, that was one of the nicest car dealerships I've been in. That was a beautiful facility. They just celebrated their 25th anniversary today. And but there aren't a lot of Hyundai dealers that you're going to walk into if you're a BMW, Mercedes, Audi buyer and go, wow, that was a great facility. And I think Genesis is going to change that. And they really laid down the path, if you will, with respect to Genesis House, which was really well done. Beautiful.
Yeah. No, I'm loving Genesis. I mean, I've experienced, the sedans at least, and they're great quality. I know they're a bit more of a price over the Kia and Hyundai, but they're they're really premium products at a pretty reasonable price. So, yeah, I think selfishly, I think you should do option 2 and 3 so that I can see both. And like,
Yeah,
yeah, like
well,
it wouldn't be that surprising from your end because yeah, you could just buy one and then change your mind and sell it and get the Macan, or
yeah,
like you said, keep it if you end up liking it more than the Ioniq 5, and then sell that. Just keep them rolling.
yeah. Well, we'll see. And it's. I also like to see the experience that you get from purchasing these cars. At the dealerships. Um, I'll just leave it at that. Some are good, some
Yeah.
are not so good. So
Oh yeah. Yeah, dealership model is interesting. That's one thing I think I would like Tesla for, and I think
yes,
I align with you as far as Model S probably would be my go-to if I was going to buy a Tesla right now, just because I like everything about that car. Although I'm such a small car person, like in theory, Model 3 should be my go-to, but I don't know, maybe I'm maturing and I really want air suspension and slightly nicer driving feel. I don't
Yeah,
know.
once you drive the e-tron, you're like, oh, air suspension is nice.
Yeah, I can't wait to drive
So
that.
want to keep it on my dad's topic, but speaking of ordering a Model S, I just did that just to see the Tesla experience today, and it is so easy. I can just go through all of the things right here on my phone, boom, 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 and then apparently it just shows up at my door.
Yeah, it's the future.
yeah.
This is so good, and I don't have to negotiate on price. And they said the car's available in the next couple weeks, and it's just like, wow, that's pretty freaking sweet.
Oh, and by the way, Jordan, if any of these dealerships charge, which Porsche is not, I know
Mhm.
that they're not charging over sticker, but if Genesis does, we're not buying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
That's just me. Anyone
Yeah.
who's out there, if you want to pay over sticker, go do it. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I don't need to chase a deal here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's just not something that will happen. So a lot of this is really opportunistic. It's economic. It's a nice thing to do, but it's just I'm also very very much curious to understand the Genesis experience and see how that whole thing goes. They've been super communicative, but they don't know a lot about what's going on. I did hear they're not bringing the rear wheel drive version to the States
Good.
because
We don't want it.
yeah, but like Kyle, I would say that the rear wheel drive version of that car, because I drove the Ioniq 5 rear wheel drive. You got to get a hold of one of those and do a 70-mile-an-hour test somehow. Um, that car did not feel like, how the difference between an ID4 rear wheel drive and an ID4 all wheel drive, that's a significant difference. Like, I don't care about numbers, but when you get in the car, you notice that you get that little feeling in the ID4 all wheel drive that you don't even get with the rear wheel drive car. The rear wheel drive Ioniq 5, I didn't think it felt that much slower than the all wheel drive one.
Well,
Like
that's what
off the
Ben
line.
said too. You and Ben are the only two people I expect that have driven a rear-wheel drive Ioniq 5 because all the media cars are just all-wheel drives.
Yeah. No, it was, I was ready to buy one, as you know, as
Yep.
some people know, at a dealership up in Massachusetts. So, it just didn't work out, but that car drove great. It really drove very well. So I was thinking, well, if the Ioniq 5 rear wheel drive drives really well, and if you could get the Napa leather in the rear wheel drive, which isn't happening because the car's not even coming here, then that would be the piece to get. Especially if that car's going to be in. I mean, where we're living here, it's relatively flat, and once in a while you get a snowstorm. But I don't know. We'll
So
see.
what about your thoughts on luxury electric cars, EQS, Air, Taycan, or Model S?
Yeah. So, boy, you got to go there. So the Lucid Air, I am really, really in love with everything on paper, the technology, the people, the fact that it is, they're bringing together just an incredible, talented group of people and putting the car together and out there. Had a lot of fun following their whole journey to take the company public just was a personal interest of mine. The car just doesn't do it for me from a look standpoint. And to the point where we went to Genesis House, we went to see the Lucid in not Tribeca, in the Meatpacking District in New York.
Was that the first time you had seen one?
No. We remember right. You and I we had seen it back at the New York whatever the car club.
We had like a little at Manhattan Classic Car Club.
The Manhattan Classic Car Club. I had seen it there, and to me, it just doesn't do it for me. But what's exciting to me about Lucid is what they're going to do a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. So I'm very bullish on Lucid from a delivery standpoint as far as the product itself, the fact that everything is vertically integrated, the fact that this company has grown up building batteries, they know what they're doing, and but the car just doesn't do it for me. The Taycan, the Cross Turismo, I love that. I think that versus a Model S, forget the Plaid, don't need the speed. And I wouldn't want that steering wheel. Although I did see that video you put up yesterday where you had a round steering wheel on a Plaid. Is that right?
Yep.
So, but I wouldn't need a Plaid. Model S 100 or Taycan. I think you got to have them both.
Yeah, I think it's a situation.
There's so much good about the Porsche. When I did spend some time with one down in Florida, the car, Kyle, that you drove across country.
Yeah,
Thank
the
you
4S.
It was a 4S, and I loved it. I don't know. That's a real tricky one. I think I might go with the Cross Turismo
over a Model S.
I'd have to look at the pricing, but yes.
Well, the Taycan for a nice one's a lot more.
No, but I mean, you can't get a Cross Turismo in a rear wheel drive. Is that right?
No, but you can get the 4, which is like the cheap all wheel drive.
Okay, so what is that price wise compared to a base Model S? Forget about FSD. I don't want that. Just
it's going to be more for the Porsche by the time you put options on it.
Yeah, easily 25.
Yeah, because again, you want headlights, you want windshield wipers,
but you get $7,500 off of the Porsche, whereas you don't with the Tesla.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they're the same price, I think I'd go with the Porsche.
Mm-hmm. Well, in Colorado, we can get 10 grand. We can do state plus federal tax.
Yeah, here in Connecticut, the cheaper you're only able to get it if the car MSRP X the destination is under 40,000, and it's 2,200, I think.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know.
I'm okay with the MSRP cap on that. People who can afford a $100,000 car don't need the cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah.
So cool. What's next for your YouTube career, Dad? You're gonna make more videos?
I don't know. I just had somebody say something pretty nasty to me on my Florida road trip video that was a little bit upsetting. But I know you say don't read the comments, but overall, I learned a lot. I did the editing myself on that video using Final Cut, and I truly enjoyed it. I really did. So I have all the footage for the return trip. So I'm gonna start working on that from Florida back up to Connecticut. I will say that I did visit Pedro in off of 95, and that was kind of some fun time with Bailey there, and visited my daughter in Tampa, and we went out to dinner there, and kind of got a little bit close for not charging enough, and to me, I'll do that next, and I don't know what I'm going to do as far as continuing to add content to the channel. If it seemingly is of value, I don't really have access to the cars like you do, Kyle or Jordan. So, how much more, what value can I put out there as far as the Ioniq 5? I'm not really sure. If we get a GV60 or a Macan, sure, we can add a lot of content there. So I have to think about it. Some of the ideas though that have been going through my mind. Kyle, remember when we were talking on the road trip from Connecticut to Florida, and I was asking you about watts and amps and all these different things. And as much as I'm into these cars, and I, except for the little mistaking, got off the wrong exit and ended up having to charge in a 110. I think I know what I'm doing when it comes to charging. And yeah, I was pushing it. I was, admittedly pushing it a little bit there, and should have been more conservative, especially being all alone and it being 4 a.m. However, I think there's a lot to learn still for me about just some basic concepts here, and how things work. Now, I just don't know if people would want to hear, what's the difference? Why do you have to understand the difference between kilowatts and kilowatt hours? Does it matter? Or the charging and the amperage. And, Kyle, you talk about, you go to an EA station and it's I say it's a 350, and you say, yeah, but it's software limited to 350 amps. And I'm thinking 350 kilowatts. And you say, yeah, but they should be 500 amps. Like, I just don't understand that. I don't get it. So you get it. I know you get it, and you're super confident about it. But I think there may be a video in the making where we can just have more of a basic conversation about what are the terms that you need to know in order to move over to this new sort of electric, because the concept of a tipping point when it comes to any technology, when you go from to, I really think that 2023 is going to be a major tipping point. What's happened to me, in my opinion, from last year, starting with the ID4, now with the Kia EV6, there's a lot of different cars out there. The Volvo, I don't need to list them off. The Mach-E, obviously, all the different cars that are out there. There's a huge amount of choice now, and people are starting to think about maybe getting an electric vehicle as the second car. Maybe they don't take it on road trips. And so I think a lot of people are starting to be, really starting to think about making the leap over to an EV. And what are the implications of that from a charging infrastructure standpoint? There's so much that both of you know that I don't think the average public knows. So I feel like I might be able to lead some sort of an effort to talk to the people that are not quite as nerdy or not quite as geeky as you both are. And I think there might be some opportunities to educate. Now, I know there's a lot of videos out there that talk about these things, but what do you guys think? I mean, I think there's a need for it.
Yeah, I wonder if we should do got to figure out the right channel to put it on. Maybe motoring is the right channel to put it on, because that's more of your general audience. I feel like our reviews audience are like hardcore nerds. They get it. And we can't lose our core audience there.
Yeah.
But motoring is definitely much more broad. Totally different groups of people watch those videos, by the way. And so that might not be a bad idea. Perhaps we should find a backing sponsor from like a EV, sort of high level overview thing, and sell 10 videos and have you present them or something like that. And that might be a good way to offset the costs.
I think there could be whether it's 10 or 5, I think there could be sort of a course that we could offer, not a course, but just chapters of how to build on educating and the knowledge. I think that I would enjoy doing that. And I think the best way to do that in a lot of ways is to teach people that don't have any experience charging. And
which is most of people.
Most people, yeah. And I mean, like Kyle, even watching you whatever trip that was, when you were on the race to Vegas and you were trying to get the EA super, whatever you call it, the EA charger going, right? And I mean, how many times have you done that in your life? And it's
not my error. It's just the units weren't working properly.
Right. But how does someone know if they're a newbie that it's maybe that not them and it's the unit or so
it wouldn't charge. So it's got to be one of the two.
Like I'll tell you what, when you pull into an EA station, what does it say on the screen? Please plug in. right? No.
Yep.
Don't please plug in. Go on to the app, swipe,
Yeah.
then plug in.
I'm a
That
fan of
works every time.
pre-activating. Yeah, I like the pre-activation because especially with a lot of newbies, you get to plug in the car and then they're like, "What's the next step?" And there's a timeout limit for when you plug in the car that like isn't that long. And so if you don't swipe fast enough, then it'll time out. It'll say, "Please put the connector back," but you actually just swiped on the app, and then the app gets bricked and and then you can't charge.
Yeah. So there's another thing that I just wanted to bring up. You had made a video recently, Kyle, about the 3 things that every EV needs: preconditioning of the battery pack, en route navigation planning, charging planning, and plug and charge. Right. And as much as when I just said that to the two of you, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. I don't think everybody else, like I'm saying, the vast majority of the people, they glaze over when they hear that. Like, what does
I
that mean?
explained what each one does.
No, I know you did. I'm not suggesting you didn't. But what I'm saying is that I think there's an opportunity to really bring it down to maybe a whole new audience. You may be on something. It's probably not for the reviews crowd, right? For the out of spec reviews. I don't know if it makes sense to create another channel, but it might make sense to create a 10-pack.
I think we baked it into motoring. We do one road trip a week, so why not do a midweek? I think Alyssa wanted to call them. Gosh, why can't I remember? It's such a good name. It was like Tipsy Tuesday or something like that, but it was like Tidbit Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or road trip U, meaning university. Like a little bit of a course, and and then
I think less university style, more YouTube style would be the way.
I think I like Tipsy Tuesday. I'll just give you a tip, and I'll also be drinking.
Yeah. Tipsy Tuesday could work. We got to talk to Timon if we can use his name though.
I have another idea that I wanted to run by both you guys to see what you thought. When I was on this road trip from Connecticut to Florida, and then also coming back, I don't know about all of you out there, but I like to talk to people. I don't like to just sit in my car. I get out, I talk to people, and for the most part, it kind of reminds me years ago when my wife and I were building a house on Long Island, and everybody was building a house at the same time, and people would get out of their cars and talk to each other, and they had something in common. It didn't matter, who they were, how old they were, where they were from. There was a common bond that happened when we were building that house, and I get to see
prices.
What's that?
Lumber prices.
Well, now I'll forget it now. Yeah, but lumber prices. But but now when you pull into an EA charger, you can tell the people that want to talk and who don't. You leave the ones that just want to sit in their car and listen to music or watch a video or whatever. But there, 9 times out of 10, people are willing to get out and just kind of talk, and I sort of enjoy that. And then I noticed a lot of people don't really truly understand, the charging speeds versus what their cars can absorb. And so I was talking to this one guy on the way back from Florida in Gainesville, on the way back to Connecticut from Florida. And this is a guy that he'll be in my next video. Kyle, he said he met you in Colorado. I don't know, but he and I were brainstorming a little bit off camera about creating sort of an idea to what are the sort of etiquette rules of charging. It really irritates me when I see a Tesla parked in a Tesla supercharging spot, not plugged in, right? Or it irritates me if I see a Kia Niro charge plugged into a 350 or 94 or a Bolt, and I don't think people are doing this to be mean, although maybe the Tesla guys are. There's a sense of you feel like, oh, you're special because you have an electric vehicle. I don't know. I just don't really get that. So I thought it would be really helpful to kind of ask the community for input on what are their top 5 things that they would suggest from an etiquette standpoint at when you're charging, right? What do you do? And I could rattle off 10 of them myself right now. But if we take a poll from the audience, and I'd be glad to take this initiative on, and we take all of this information back from experienced users, people that have been doing this for a long time, and we create a document that becomes almost like a working document that we can share with others. These are the things that we as a community try to uphold around charging stations. And like yesterday, I sent out a tweet at I was going grocery shopping just at the local, at the Stop and Shop. We have the EAs here, and there wasn't another car there. So I was down to 4%, and I figured it's time to charge up for the week, and I did. And I went there and I charged up. Now I have free charging, and I did that. But Kyle, remember Syosset with Tesla? There were 4 stations there. I think they were 120s maybe. And you go there, and we were out visiting Kathy's mom and dad, and we'd come home, and you'd get out, and there'd be a line of 4 people there waiting, and some guy was on the hook. And I'm not going to say whether or not you could or could not maybe see what state of charge they were at. Perhaps there was some way to do that and get that information, and we might know that they're at 95% and they're sitting there on the hook. And then when you get out and you talk to them, sort of along the lines of we're building a house. Hey, let's say, hey, that's great. Hey, where do you live? Oh, I live right down the street. Now, what are you doing? Right? I'm trying to pass through to get all the way back up to Connecticut. And there you are charging you're blocking a charger. And I think that this is not something, I don't even think the guy or people that I've run into, that they deliberately are doing to make anyone mad. They're just not aware of what they're doing and the impact that they have. 9 out of 10 people. Some people are perhaps, just going to do it because they feel a sense of entitlement. But I don't know. I feel like there is a place for us to maybe aggregate what is the best of charging etiquettes and publish a document, and agree that if we as a community say that these are the 25 items that you should try to do.
I don't think we can represent the community. That's not our place. But we can certainly make a video with suggestions.
Right.
Perhaps you even reach out to a few of the charging companies and say, what are you finding? Here's what ChargePoint had to say. Here's what EVgo had to say. Here's what Electrify America had to say that they would like to see. Either stop putting stickers on the chargers, stop doing, because they have their own issues. Stop filming people at charging stations would be one that they would tell us. And it's like, no, sorry, that's what we do. These are the things. So maybe just get it from all sides of the picture and then publish a video on it.
Yeah, I guess I don't disagree, Kyle, and that's interesting perspective from your angle. I guess the question is, how do we get this in the hands of the adopters, the early, not the early adopters, but the tipping point people that are not necessarily getting the information from the dealerships today as to the right or wrong way to charge. And by the way, it's possible that the dealerships are actually saying this as the cars are driving out. But when you get a brand new car, there's so much going on in your mind. You're thinking about, how do I turn the radio on? How do I put it in gear? There's so much to learn, right? The learning process has to continue after you drive the car away from the dealership. And
a lot of people it doesn't. And it's not going to, if they don't want to learn, they won't learn. You have to go out and search for the information. I mean, the best we can do is utilize our platform to get it out to as many people that find our videos. There's nothing I think we can really ethically do beyond that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we better wrap it up. But if any of you watching or listening have ideas, just drop them in the comments, because the more we see, the more we can think of to throw in videos. So, but Dave, we really appreciate you coming on and sharing some of your story and your input and how you've experienced charging, for better or for worse. And,
I think more Out of Spec Dave YouTube videos. Everyone loves you on YouTube.
100%.
I don't know.
You got to ignore the comments who say otherwise, because they're just, YouTube's full of liars.
99% of people are like, more Kyle's dad. And I'm like, that's less work for me. More Kyle's dad.
It's a lot of fun. And it's, it's just it's a wild thing to even think that people take a look at what product we're putting out here, and in my case, but yeah, guys, thank you so much for asking me to come on, and it's great. Jordan, one day you should have me on, and I'll tell you all about Kyle. As he was growing up.
Perfect.
The bonus
I won't
podcast.
do that. No, I'm just kidding. I won't do that.
All right.
So-
Well, we'll see everyone next time. You can find Dave at Out of Spec Dave.